All right. Now I have the honor to invite to the General Assembly the members of the dais of the General Assembly, which will be led by Mr. President of the General Assembly and Madam Vice President of the General Assembly. And Mr. President, Madam Vice President, you're welcome to the General Assembly. So, at this point in time, I would hand over to the President of the General Assembly to begin formal session. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies.
Good morning, delegates. Good morning, House. Good morning, invited guests. Can we please rise for 1 minute moment of silence? Can we have our seat? The House, we are appropriately calling us to order. So the House is in order now. I'll call on the Vice President of General Assembly to give us a roll call, and the countries would have to indicate whether they are present or present on voting appropriately for it to be documented even before we start these whole sessions. Remember that this very session is very important, and it would guide us and know how we would do our voting in terms of the motion and everything that goes on. So please, once your country is mentioned, indicate your stance, whether you are present or you are voting. Thank you very much.
Before we begin roll call, allow me to clarify between the two possible and appropriate responses when your delegation's name is called. Observer states should respond as present. Member states or delegations may respond as present or present and voting. Delegates who identify their status as present and voting are not permitted to abstain on any substantive vote. Instead, these delegates must vote strictly in favor or in opposition to any motion before the committee. Before the General Assembly. Please be aware that by definition, an abstention is a non-vote or, on a more objective level, the decision of a delegate to refrain from voting either in favor or in opposition to a particular substantive question. Therefore, it is inconsistent and inappropriate to respond to roll call as present and voting if the possibility exists that your state may wish to abstain on a substantive matter. Please also note that all delegates must vote on procedural motions. The dais will not recognize abstentions on any procedural votes. The dais will endeavor to diplomatically remind delegations of this before any substantive votes. I begin the roll call. Afghanistan. 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 Albania, Algeria, Andorra, Andorra. Please be audible, dear delegates. Andorra, Angola, Angola, Antigua and Barbuda, Argentina, Armenia, Australia, Australia, Austria, Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan, Bahamas, Belize, Benin, Benin, Bhutan, Bhutan, Bolivia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Botswana, Brazil, Republic of Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan, Brunei Darussalam, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cambodia, Cameroon, Canada, Cape Verde, Cape Verde, Central African Republic, Chad, Chile, China, Colombia, Comoros, Congo, Costa Rica, Côte d'Ivoire, Croatia, Cuba, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Korea, Denmark, Djibouti, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Egypt, El Salvador, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Estonia, Ethiopia, Fiji, Finland, France, Gabon, Gambia, Georgia, Germany, Ghana, Greece, Grenada, Guatemala, Guinea-Bissau, Guyana, Haiti, Honduras, Hungary, Iceland, India, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Jamaica, Japan, Hashemite, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kenya, Kiribati, Kuwait, Kyrgyzstan, Laos People Democratic Republic, Latvia, Lebanon, Lesotho,
Present.
Liberia,
Present.
Libya, Libya,
Present.
Liechtenstein, Lithuania,
Present.
Luxembourg,
Present.
Madagascar,
Present.
Malawi,
Present.
Malaysia,
Present.
Maldives,
Present.
Mali,
Present.
Malta,
Present.
Marshall Islands, Mauritania,
Present and voting.
Mauritius,
Present. Present.
Mexico,
Present.
Micronesia, Monaco,
Present.
Mongolia, Montenegro, Morocco,
Present.
Mozambique,
Present.
Myanmar,
Present and voting.
Namibia, Nauru, Namibia,
Present.
Republic of Nepal,
Present and voting.
Netherlands,
Present.
New Zealand,
Present.
Niger, Nigeria,
Present.
Norway, Oman, Pakistan, Palau, Pakistan,
Present. Present.
Palau, Panama,
Present and voting.
Papua New Guinea,
Present.
Paraguay,
Present.
Peru,
Present.
Philippines,
Present.
Poland,
Present.
Portugal,
Present.
Qatar, Korea,
Present.
Moldova, Romania, Russian Federation,
Present and voting.
Rwanda,
Present.
Saint Kitts and Nevis, Saint Lucia, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, Samoa, San Marino, Sao Tome and Principe, Saudi Arabia, Senegal,
Present.
Serbia, Seychelles,
Present and voting.
Sierra Leone,
Present.
Singapore,
Present.
Slovak,
Present and voting.
Slovenia,
Present.
Solomon Islands,
Present.
Somalia,
Present and voting.
South Africa,
Present.
South Sudan, Spain,
Present.
Sri Lanka,
Present and voting.
Sudan,
Present.
Suriname, Swaziland, Sweden,
Present and voting.
Swiss Confederation, Syrian Republic, Tajikistan, Thailand, Macedonia, Timor-Leste, Togo, Tonga, Trinidad and Tobago, Tunisia, Turkey,
Present.
Turkmenistan,
Present.
Tuvalu, Uganda,
Present.
Ukraine,
Present and voting.
United Arab Emirates,
Present.
United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland,
Present.
Tanzania, America, United States of America,
Present and voting.
Uruguay, Uzbekistan, Vanuatu, Venezuela, Vietnam,
Present and voting.
Yemen,
Present.
Zambia,
Present and voting.
Zimbabwe,
Present.
For those delegates who may have arrived while the roll call was being taken and whose attendance has not yet been recorded, please notify the dais to let us know of your arrival and voting status. Please be certain that your attendance has been recorded, that as you may not be recognized by the dais, including for motions, speeches, or voting, unless you are recorded as present. Thank you.
So before we set the quorum, are there any other country that was not recognized? Bangladesh, Bahrain, okay, so a moment. All right, Bangladesh, what is your voting status, present or present in voting? The next country, what country please? Bahrain. Any other country? Belgium. Bulgaria, okay. Present or present? Any other country? Norway. Present or present? Present. Romania. Please, present. Can you shout your country's name? Switzerland.
Present and voting.
Present and voting, Switzerland. Is that Cuba?
Yes, Cuba. Present.
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 Which country?
Jesus.
Dagestan.
Present.
Present. Oh, why are you laughing, Dagestan? That's your own country's name. The next country?
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic.
Present.
Present. Any other country? Yes, you've recorded you. Belgium. Present or present in voting? Present in voting. Belarus. Present in voting. Present. Congo. DR Congo.
Yes. Present.
Present. Any other country? Any other country? Shall you set now? Yes. Shall you set now? You can come and bring.
Dear delegates, the quorum will be set with a simple majority. Of the 45 member states that answered present, simple majority is 15.
All right, thank you very much. May we welcome the members of the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, as they join us, please. You are welcome, ICJ. Shall we invite Mr. Ekure David and Ms. Nahan Wiyeb to do us the honors of introducing our guest to us.
Good morning, Your Excellencies. It is a privilege to be standing before you to introduce some distinguished guests in our presence. And then, as it's a normal practice to give honor to whom honor is due, permit me to introduce these distinguished guests in our presence.
Bonjour à tous et à toutes. Comme c'est une pratique normale de rendre honneur à qui honneur est dû, permettez-moi à vous présenter les distincts invités parmi nous.
In our presence this morning is the Vice Chancellor, Professor Anthony Akinlo. Also, we have the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Ahmed Yerima.
Avec nous aujourd'hui, nous avons le Vice-Chancellor, Professeur Anthony Akinlo, et le Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Professor Ahmed Yerima.
Also in our presence, we have the Deputy Provost for the College of Postgraduate Studies, in the persons of Professor Femi Ayoade.
Avec nous aujourd'hui aussi, nous avons le Deputy Provost du Collège d'études postgraduates, le Monsieur Femi Ayoade.
We also have in our midst the University Chaplain in persons of Pastor Akinshele.
Nous avons le chaplain de l'université, Professeur Akinsoli.
In our presence also, we have the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, Professor Aflorensho Dairo. Welcome, sir.
Nous avons Professeur Akinsho Dairo, le Dean de Faculté d'Humanité aussi.
The person of Mrs. Mojishola Oge will be representing the registrar.
Nous avons Madame Mojisola Oje, qui est représentée de le registre.
Representing the bossa, we have no other person than Mrs. Saliu. We are welcome, ma'am.
Le bosser aussi, c'est Madame Saliu.
Representing the university librarian, we have in our presence Dr. Mrs. Adeniro.
Le librarian aussi, c'est Professeur Aderion.
We also have representing Representing here the Director of the Directorate for Academic Planning and Quality Assurance, Mr. Bernard Ujo.
Le directeur de planning et le professeur de planning avec académique, c'est Monsieur Bernard Njor.
Also, we have the Director for DSSS, Mr. Demola Ipenko, our presence.
Le directeur de DSS, Professeur Demola Ipenko aussi.
Also, for this significant gathering, our keynote speaker is the professor himself, who is also the head of department for History and Strategic Study, University of Lagos, in person of Professor David Awurewo.
Le monsieur qui parle avec nous aujourd'hui est le aide de département, c'est Professeur David Awurewo.
Also, we have the head of department for History and International Studies, in person of Dr. Bernard Feanka.
Le HOD de History and International Relations, c'est Professeur Bernard Fianka.
We also have in our presence Professor Olumide Ekanade.
Nous avons Professeur Olumide Ekanade aussi.
Also, we have the Director for the Directorate of Educational Services and Training, in person of Dr. Oluwani Oluwatoyin.
Le directeur de service éducation et training aussi, c'est Professeur Dr. Kemi, Professeur Oluwanayi.
Also, in our presence, we have the presence of Dr. Kemi Adeshino in our midst today.
Nous avons Professeur Kemi Adeshino avec nous aussi.
Last but not the least, we want to also welcome you, our delegates and excellencies from across the world. You're welcome to this official gathering. Thank you very much.
Le delegate avec nous aujourd'hui, nous avons bienvenue aussi. Merci et au revoir.
Thank you very much. Let me just break protocol a little bit and ask for delegates to, let's give a resounding clap to our invited guests and officials that join us. When the introduction was going on, I think probably I was the only person who felt that even names were mentioned in French. Is that not amazing? All right, thank you very much, our MCs. At this stage, delegates, the floor is open for motions to set the agenda. Our agenda today is addressing growing threats to global development. So the floor is open for motion to set this very agenda. By God's grace, we just have one agenda, so setting this agenda should be very easy. The floor is open for motions. Motions to set the agenda, please. United Kingdom, right? All right, UK.
Thank you, Daz. Good morning, House. Good morning, Daz. Good morning to other officials, and good morning to the General Secretary, and good morning to the observers and guests. The delegate of United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland would like to move the motion to set the agenda to discuss
addressing global threats.
Addressing growing threats to global development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seconders for the motion. Egypt.
The delegates of Egypt would like to second the motion.
Thank you very much. Are there objections to this very motion? Seeing none, the motion passes. All right, thank you very much. The agenda of addressing growing threats to global development is set by the Honorable Delegate of UK. So, delegates, we are ready to listen to the various speakers that have joined us this morning. And I'll call on the very first person. Even before I call on the very first person, let's all note that Mr. Roland Kanyanga would join us via Zoom and give his address. But once the time is due, I'll invite Mr. Roland Kanyanga to join us. So the very first person to address us is the Secretary General of Ruimun, that is Redeemer University, Model United Nations. Mr. Secretary General, you're welcome.
Mr. President of the General Assembly, distinguished ambassadors, permanent observers, faculty advisors, guests, members of the press, Your Excellencies. It gives me great delight and pleasure to welcome you to the third session of Redeemers University International Model United Nations, and to address you on the theme of this conference as we come together to discuss this general topic. It is obvious that we are at a critical stage in the world. The challenges that we face are immense, but if we work together through resilience and multilateralism, we can overcome these challenges and secure a more prosperous future for all. The world faces a number of complex and interconnected challenges, including climate change, poverty, inequality, conflict, unequal access to health, amongst others. As these challenges are not limited to certain countries and regions, they require a coordinated global response. The stakes are high, and failure to act now will have dire consequences for generations to come. Crucial to mitigating these challenges is the need to balance economic development with environmental sustainability. We must, as a matter of urgency, come together to foster economic growth and development while protecting our planet and ensuring that future generations have access to the resources that they need to thrive. Your Excellencies, this will require a fundamental shift in the way we think about development, a renewed commitment to environmental sustainability and stewardship. Addressing global development challenges is not just about protecting the environment, but also about ensuring that all people have access to the opportunities and resources they need to lead fulfilling and productive lives. Distinguished guests, Your Excellencies, to achieve these goals, we must work together across borders and sectors to harness the power of technology and innovation to drive progress, while also ensuring that the benefits of these advances are shared equitably. We need to promote cooperation and collaboration and build strong partnerships that can drive meaningful change. As we move forward, we must also recognize that the challenges we face are not static, but constantly evolving and adapting, and we must be prepared to do just as such. This will require sustained and long-term commitment to development and a willingness to adapt and innovate as circumstances change. Distinguished ambassadors, in conclusion, I want to reiterate that we are at a critical juncture. The challenges that we face are immense, but the opportunities for progress are also great. By coming together, we can build a more prosperous, sustainable, and equitable future for all. Let us seize this opportunity and work together to address our common enemies by championing great and feasible solutions to the issues raised at this conference towards addressing the threats to our development. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. General, Secretary General for Ruimun. We also have an address from the United Nations Secretary General, that is Antonio Guterres. He's here with us today. So welcome Antonio Guterres to give us a very short address.
United Nations Conference and for believing in the power of global cooperation to solve global problems. We need your engagement and ideas today more than ever. Conflict, poverty, hunger and inequalities are on the rise. A surge of mistrust and misinformation is polarizing people and paralyzing societies. Human rights are under assault. And the triple planetary crisis, climate disruption, pollution and catastrophic biodiversity loss is threatening lives and livelihoods everywhere. But we can turn things around. Humanity has shown time and again that we are capable of great things when we work together across geographies and generations. To do so, we need an inclusive and networked multilateralism, one that ensures young people have a seat and a say in shaping our common future. We need your creativity, courage and commitment. I draw hope from seeing your generation challenge the status quo and call for transformative challenge. The United Nations is your steadfast ally in striving to build a more just, sustainable, inclusive and peaceful world for all. Thank you.
we'll move on to the next person. That will be the remarks from the head of department, History and International Studies, Dr. Bernard Fianca. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Vice Chancellor, sir, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, the members of the management team here represented, deans, directors, and all other protocols observed. It's a privilege once more to host yet another United Nations, model United Nations in the department here. I would like to, on behalf of myself, my colleagues in the department, entire members of the department, welcome all the delegates from all over the world, all over West Africa. You are welcome. We have enjoyed the Model United Nations for the past couple of years, and we have really appreciated the results that we've reaped in the department, especially from our students and also from the school management. This year's topic borders on addressing the growing threat of global development. And I would like to point out to the delegates from all over the world that conspicuously missing from here is the issue of human development, which we would want to impress upon us to be a key factor in the agenda that will be discussed in various committees. We understand that climate, economic issues, war, conflict have taken up a huge amount of the conversation and discourse on development. But I'd also like to encourage us to look at the human angle, especially in reference to the conceptualization of a woman. The question, what is a woman, has become a very hot issue. And I will be putting it to the General Assembly, the Secretary General, and all delegates that it should be a United Nations issue. The LGBTQ plus agenda has completely placed us in a position whereby at the global level we should now decide what a woman is. Because if men are going to rise up and overnight claim to be women and take the place of a woman, then we'll have a problem with development. Very serious problem. So I'm enjoining us to reconceptualize development from the human angle. And I know that the debates are going to be heated, but the results are equally going to be very wonderful. I will also be joining some of the debates in order to see what the results will be like. And I hope that at the end of our deliberations, we'll be able to establish the place of a woman, and then we all know how important that is in driving development. Thank you very much, and Godspeed in your deliberations.
Thank you very much, sir. We are most grateful, and the issue of women and who a woman is, we'll certainly address that. And I know the committee, which is certainly in charge of that, would certainly put it in their resolution once they are done with everything. Thank you very much.
To be part of this model United Nations, the Redeemers University International Model United Nations 2023. On behalf of the UN, I would like to thank Redeemers University for holding these Model UN consistently every year. I recall that even during the problems we had with COVID-19, you still held the Model UN. I also congratulate the delegates who are participating in this Model UN this year. As you know, Model UN gives you an opportunity to understand how multilateralism works, and how the United Nations works, how we come together as nations to solve problems that affect all of us. So I'd like to thank you for all the preparations you have made as delegates. And we are so proud of Model UN at Redeemers University, but we are also so proud of you, the young people that are investing your time and effort in the Model United Nations. The theme you chose for this year is most appropriate, a tipping point addressing growing threats to global development. Indeed, this issue keeps us awake in the United Nations these days. You will recall that in 2015, UN member states agreed on two major initiatives. One was Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and a Paris Agreement on climate change with 5 elements. So the 5 elements of the climate change Paris agreements are mitigation, meaning that we have to work hard towards net zero carbon emissions, adaptation, knowing that our world has already changed with the climate change, and therefore we need to adapt to the changes. Finance, that we need a lot of money for us to work on this issue of climate change. Technology, that we need to share technology and innovations, and also capacity building. But 8 years later, we are all aware that we are not on track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, nor are we on track to achieve the targets that we set ourselves for the Paris Agreement on climate change. Indeed, as you have indicated, this is a tipping point, and the world needs to do something very drastic. This is why the United Nations Secretary General has called for a summit in September on the Sustainable Development Goals to help the world leaders discuss how we get back on track to achieve the development urgently that we decided to push. But there are 3 major problems that have derailed us from achieving the goals of development that we had set ourselves in 2015. One was the COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic, which devastated the world in a period of 2 years, disrupted global production and supply chains. Many indicators of the Sustainable Development Goals became worse, like poverty, hunger, education, health. All these were affected. Employment, people lost jobs. And as you know, one of the goals is to increase decent work and employment. So that period of the pandemic set the world back so much, and it has affected all countries. And that's why we have the rampant inflation, not only in Nigeria, but globally. Second, conflicts. As if COVID-19 was not bad enough. Around the same time, we had many conflicts, including a major one now going on, the Ukraine war. It has come at a time when the world was more vulnerable because of COVID-19. It has again contributed to disruption of production, setting us back in food production, the issues of security, energy security for countries, disrupting supply chains. And you also know that we are having an initiative at least to ensure that food continues to flow from Ukraine to the countries that need it, and also fertilizers to increase agricultural production. So the conflict has come at a time that has worsened what COVID-19 had done to the world. The third challenge is climate change. As you all know, we continue to see extreme weather events like flooding, droughts, forest fires, heat waves, and all these continue to undermine development. So what should we do? Our hope continues to be Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. Remember, we shifted the narrative or the paradigm on development. Development will never again be defined without talking about sustainability. So still our framework to get the world out of the problems that we have is sustainable development. Remember, sustainable development, or what others have now called climate resilient development, is that development which seeks to meet the needs of current generations without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. It is a meeting between development, people, and the planet. So I'm so glad that you are going to be discussing these things. You are going to be discussing the perils that we are going through as a world community on how to make sure that the world develops and there is fairness and dignity for all humankind. We believe that implementing the Sustainable Development Goals is our way out of the problems we are facing, but we have a major problem of financing. The Secretary General has indicated that annually we need $500 billion if we are going to be on track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We are already halfway towards 2030 to achieve the goals. We are looking to you, young people. We are looking to you, the delegates of Model UN, to come up with ideas, to discuss what we should do, what urgent measures needs to be taken by the various countries of the world to enable us achieve our objectives. Our goal is a fair world, a world where it's not only a few that are living in luxury and others are suffering, but a world where everybody can survive and thrive. And that is why the goals of the Sustainable Development, the framework, are so important. I would like to thank you so much again, Redeemers University, for your commitment to Model United Nations and to the goals and aspirations that are expressed by the member states of the UN through the work of the United Nations and the General Assembly. So as you continue working with us on Model United Nations, I'm sure you will work with us to get solutions to the problems that the world is facing. Together, especially working with you young people, we will solve these problems. Every generation gets its problems to solve, and this generation has these problems to work to solve. And I'm sure working together with all of you, we will solve these problems. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I would like to wish all of you very positive deliberations, and would like to read from you actually the resolutions you come up with in this Model UN. As I said, the topic you are handling is so apt because it is what is also going to be discussed in September by world leaders at the SDG Summit. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much, all the officials of Redeemers University, Model International, Model United Nations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roland Kayanga. We will certainly present our resolutions to your office for the needed attention and redress. We are much grateful, sir. Moving on to the next person to address us, we'll call on the Dean of Faculty of Humanities, that is Professor Afolonsho Dairo, to join us with his remarks.
The Secretary General and other Ruimun Committee officials, the Director, United Nations Information Center, my Vice Chancellor, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, the Registrar, the Bursar, the Acting University Librarian, the University Librarian being represented, Provost College of Postgraduate Studies, Deans of Faculties, Directors of Directorates, Heads of Departments or Divisions, eminent resource persons, distinguished delegates, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to congratulate my Vice Chancellor, Professor Anthony Enison Akinlo, and the entire management of Redeemers University for hosting the third edition of Redeemers University International United Nations, Ruimun. Also, I must commend the efforts of the local organizing committee headed by Dr. Ben Anemenen, the LOC head of the maiden edition, Dr. Luatoyin Oluwaniyi, and the head of the Department of History and International Studies, Dr. Fianka, for making sure that this conference is a reality. I'm happy to welcome you all to this third edition of Ruimun, which holds between 15th and 19th of May 2023. As contained in the official website of Ruimun, this type of gathering is where people overcome their fears of public speaking. It supports delegates, personal growth, and triggers self-confidence. During Ruimun committee sessions, communication skills of delegates will be sharpened. Also, at the conference, delegates are able to build life-changing networks and create solutions to the myriads of global challenges with other delegates. I'm privileged to be in attendance as Dean since the commencement of Ruimun in 2021. Indeed, I was thrilled with what I've been seeing coming out from our students. It came to a stage that I always wonder whether these are our students. During this conference, delegates are welcome and to the best private university in Nigeria and the second best university in Nigeria. The theme for this year's conference is a tipping point, addressing growing threats to global development. No doubt, this theme will serve as a template for interrogating other issues relating to the current threats to global development in the contemporary Nigeria. As indicated in the program of Ruimun, delegates will be permitted to venture into parts of worldwide policymakers, discuss on significant global emergencies, and propose possible solutions to this. Indeed, the host university, Redeemers University, has always been in the forefront of contributing positively in the fight against global challenges. Ruimun 2023 conference will take a hybrid format, which means both physical and virtual. Proceedings during the conference will be streamed live for virtual participants. At this juncture, I welcome you all to the third edition of Ruimun, and it is a great privilege to mention that the Administrative Secretariat is domiciled in the Faculty of Humanities in the Department of History and International Studies. I seize this opportunity to congratulate all members of the Faculty of Humanities family for this occasion. Once again, I appreciate you all. Thank you and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Professor Folon Shodaro. We are grateful for your comments, and certainly these are your students. Yes, they look quiet now, but they are very bright within. All right, sir. The next address will be given by the very first man of this land, the Vice Chancellor of Redeemer University, that is Professor Anthony Akinlo Enisa. You're welcome, sir.
The President of the General Assembly, the Secretary General, and other Ruimun committee officials, the Director, United Nations Information Center, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Redeemers University, representatives of the Registrar, the Bursar, and the University Librarian, the Deputy Provost, College of Literary Studies, deans of faculties, directors of directorates and centers, heads of departments, divisions, and units, eminent resource persons, distinguished delegates, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I am highly delighted to welcome you all to the third edition of the Redeemers University International Model United Nations Conference with the theme, A Tipping Point, addressing growing threats to global development. Ruimun Conference is basically a youth-led initiative with staff advisors acting in the capacity of strategic consultants. The conference brings together youths from around the world to learn and share ideas from a diverse set of skills and backgrounds. The conference also provides a platform where national and international delegates unite to learn about diplomacy, international relations, and activities of the United Nations. In line with the spirit of the United Nations, Ruimun strives to foster a constructive and innovative forum for open dialogue on complex global issues, including international peace and security, as well as economic and social progress. At the maiden edition in 2021, over 240 students were hosted physically at the Redeemers University campus at Osun State, with virtual participants joining from the United Kingdom, Ghana, Malta, and Nigeria, discussing the theme, achieving our collective commitment to multilateralism in the new normal. Delegates represented members nations of the United Nations Security Council, the United Nations Legal Committee, the Economic and Financial Committee, the Committee on the Status of Women, Social, Humanitarian, and Cultural Committee. At the end of the conference, brilliant resolutions were read and passed at the General Assembly, and deserving delegates were presented with awards in various categories. The maiden edition of Ruimun laid the foundation of excellence, enlightenment, and exposure to proper diplomatic processes and practices, upon which the second edition tried to consolidate the numerous achievements. The third edition of Ruimun 2023, with over 300 delegates representing different countries all over the world, officially starts today and promises to be educative, refreshing, enlightening, and memorable. Our ever-diligent organizing committee has ensured that the conference will be hitch-free. The sessions will be stimulating the General Assembly and 6 committees of the United Nations, namely the United Nations Security Council, Economic and Financial Commission, Social, Humanitarian, and Cultural Commission, the International Court of Justice, Disarmament and International Security Committee, and Special Political and Decolonization Committee. I wish all the delegates in this particular model of the United Nations Conference a successful deliberation in your various committees. Long live Redeemers University. Long live Redeemers University International Model United Nations. Long live Osun State. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Go ahead. Well, let's break the protocol and clap for our Vice Chancellor. Thank you very much, sir. All right, so to our next speaker, before we receive our keynote speaker, we welcome the Executive Director for Redeemer University International Model United Nations, Mr. Stephen Olubayo.
Distinguished delegates, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the opening plenary of the third session of the Redeemers University International Model United Nations. It is an honor to address this distinguished gathering today. Our theme for this year's conference is a tipping point, addressing growing threats to global development. We have chosen this theme because we believe that the challenges facing our world today require urgent attention and collaboration to find sustainable solutions. Throughout this conference, we will engage in constructive dialogue, thoughtful debate, and innovative problem solving to address these pressing issues. Together, we will explore ways to overcome obstacles and create pathways for positive change. I encourage every one of you to actively participate, share your perspectives, and work towards finding common grounds. Let us seize this opportunity to broaden our horizon. On behalf of the Ruimun Organizing Committee, I express my gratitude to all delegates, advisors, volunteers, and sponsors who have made this event possible. Your commitment to diplomacy, international relations, and the United Nations is commendable. Let us embark on this journey of diplomacy and collaboration with enthusiasm and a sense of purpose. Together, we can make a difference and create a better world for all. Distingués délégués, chers invités, mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue à la séance plénière d'ouverture de la troisième session du Model United Nations International de l'Université Redeemer. C'est un honneur de m'adresser à vous aujourd'hui lors de cette prestigieuse réunion. Notre thème pour la conférence de cette année est un point de bascule, s'attaquer aux menaces croissantes pour le développement mondial. Nous avons choisi ce thème car nous croyons que les défis auxquels notre monde est confronté aujourd'hui nécessitent une attention urgente et des efforts collaboratifs pour trouver des solutions durables. Tout au long de cette conférence, nous allons engager un dialogue constructif, des débats réfléchis et une résolution innovante des problèmes pour aborder ces questions pressantes. Ensemble, nous explorerons les moyens de surmonter les obstacles et de créer des voies de changement positif. J'encourage chacun d'entre vous à participer activement, à partager vos perspectives et à travailler à trouver des terrains d'entente. Saisissons cette opportunité. Saisissons cette opportunité pour élargir nos horizons, approfondir notre compréhension des affaires mondiales et cultiver des liens durables. Au nom du comité d'organisation du Ruimun, je tiens à exprimer ma gratitude à tous les délégués, conseillers bénévoles et sponsors qui ont rendu cet événement possible. Votre engagement en faveur de la diplomatie des relations internationales et des Nations Unies est louable. Engageons-nous ensemble dans ce voyage de diplomatie et de collaboration Avec enthousiasme et un sentiment de détermination, ensemble, nous pouvons faire la différence et créer un monde meilleur pour nous. Merci et que la conférence commence.
Merci. All right, so, and you are expecting me to translate everything, right? Apparently, he spoke the English version before speaking the French, so if you didn't hear that one, then I'm sorry. I can only help in future when I'm done with my French classes. All right, to our very keynote speaker, he is the head of Department History and International Studies of University of Lagos, UNILAG. He's also an expert in diplomacy, international relations, and strategic studies. He has won several awards. He has supervised more than 15 PhDs, which includes that of our HOD for History and International Students, Dr. Bernard Fayanka of this very institution, and the coordinator of Redeemers University International Model United Nations, Dr. Benjamin Anime. He also have published several publications, and he's well vested when it comes to international diplomacy. Delegates, members of General Assembly, this day I'm highly honored to introduce to us Professor David Awurawo. Sorry if I made it in the name. I'm a Ghanaian, forgive me. You're welcome, sir, to give your keynote address.
It is a pleasure to be in your midst. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, Deputy Vice Chancellor, President, United Nations Model Assembly, and the Deputy and the Vice, and the Secretary, all other principal officers here present, the Dean, Faculty of Arts, the Head of Department, History and International Studies, gentlemen of the press, and the large number of young people here present, our students, ladies and gentlemen. As I said before, it gives me pleasure to be here this morning to deliver this address for this model assembly. I want to particularly appreciate the young people in our midst who have expressed passion in global development, which is why they are here this morning. It is often said that the future belongs to young people, but it's consoling to also know that the future is now. I want to particularly thank the Vice Chancellor and the Deputy Vice Chancellor here present because, you know, it is encouraging to see that the highest level of the university management is supportive of this program. I didn't even know it was the Vice Chancellor was sitting by my side. In my school, you don't get to see Vice Chancellors that easily. I appreciate your presence, sir. I hope I've got some anointing from sitting close to you. I want to commend Dr. Benjamin, Dr. Bernard Fianka, and others, and of course the committee that have worked together to make this program to bring it up to this point. I understand this is the third session of the Redeemers University International Model United Nations Conference. And of course, the themes have been different over the years. For this year, we have the theme, Addressing Growing Threats to Global Development. I don't know how many minutes I have, maybe 1 hour. But I'll try to avoid what others have said so we can focus on things that are fresh on this topic. Let me begin by stating that the issues of global development are crucial to the existence of mankind. And the totality of human activities can be summed up in that one word, the quest for development. Another thing I want to point out from the outset is the fact that the issues revolving around development are central to the existence of the United Nations. Articles 1 and 2 of the Charter of the United Nations outline the objectives of the organization. After talking about peace and security in the first two paragraphs, the ones that follow address issues relating to development. So development is central to the existence of the United Nations, which is why any analysis, any assessment, any discourse, any interrogation of the activities and achievement of the United Nations always also focuses on the subject matter of development. So it is in order, it is germane, it is correct, it is, in line with contemporary developments. It is apt that this theme has been chosen for this third session of the university's Model United Nations Conference. What is the state of global development? That is the question to ask. What are those threats to global development, and how can they be addressed? Let me say a couple of things about development in itself. What is development? Because sometimes when we talk about development, ideas simply go to economic activities. Yes, economic activities are central to development. They are the core of development. But there are several other issues that touch on development. The HOD a while ago talked about human development. Development is multidimensional. And the United Nations use of the term development addresses all the components. Some have defined development as simply as the quantitative and qualitative improvement in output. Others define it as a process that answers or that ensures good quality of life for all people. Another source defines development as a result of a society's capacity to organize resources to meet the needs of people. But for this purpose, I would like to adopt the definition presented by the South Commission in their report to the United Nations in 1990. In that report, the South Commission defines development as the process of self-reliant growth, which enables a people to live lives of dignity, freedom, and fulfillment. I'll go over that again. The South Commission, in the report in 1990 to the United Nations, defines development as the process of self-reliant growth, which enables a people to live lives of dignity, freedom, and fulfillment. It is within this context we shall be using the term development in this address this morning. So, mankind is supposed to focus on issues revolving around that self-reliant growth, which will enable all of us to live a higher quality of life, lives of dignity, freedom, and fulfillment. In contemporary times, mankind has faced a whole lot of issues, a whole lot of challenges that have affected development negatively. In the book, The Contemporary Global Economy, written by Fred X, published in 2011, the author, the scholar, described the global economy at that time as turbulent. It states that the global economy at that time was facing recent turbulence. But scholars since then have made an addendum to that description, especially within the context of recent developments. They've described the factors affecting development in the contemporary times as tumultuous and cataclysmic, and that urgent solutions are required to save mankind from imminent obliteration from planet Earth. Yes, the global economy has been checkered. The fortunes have been checkered, if we are to use a diplomatic term to describe it. But it has faced challenges arising from several sources. Before we go into those challenges, it is important to stress that the United Nations has always adjusted its activities to recognize changes that have affected global development and attempted to respond to them. The United Nations Development Programme was established in 1965 to focus on generally issues of human development across the world. The UNDP is the lead agency on global development, and it has been so since 1965. It has coordinated various programs that have positively affected development and enhanced the quality of life of mankind on planet Earth. Those programs have also affected issues of interstate relations, issues of the environment, anything that impinges on development one way or the other. Of course, we are familiar with the articulation of the program, the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, in 2000, which expired in 2015, and the contemporary program, which is ongoing, the SDGs, which began 2015 and will proceed till 2030. There is the tag, Destination 2030, with the description, accelerating progress on sustainable development goals. So everybody recognizes the need for development, and efforts are being made at different levels, national levels, subnational levels even, and of course, at the global level, to address the problems of global development and how to tackle them. Now let's now come to obstacles to development in contemporary times. What are those obstacles? Because for us to address the growing threats to global development, which is our concern, we need to be able to identify what those obstacles are, understand them in their different contexts and dimensions, then we can then respond to them as a way to address them. A number of them, I will just highlight like 5 or 6 of them quickly, and then we'll see how they can be addressed as a way of understanding how to address growing threats to global development. Of course, clearly, one of the most prominent obstacles to global development in contemporary times is war, that is violent conflicts around the world. When there is violent conflicts, normal, routine, economic activity, social relations are disrupted, and quality of life, becomes very, very low. In a book by Thucydides, written about 410 BC, that is essentially written 1,430 or so years ago, titled History of the Peloponnesian War, Thucydides identifies violent conflict as an impediment to development. In fact, he also states that violent conflicts erode high values that humans hold. Things that humans don't do in normal times, they do in times of war, just for survival. So one of the greatest obstacles to development is violent conflict. So the capacity to tackle violent conflict is central to ability to address threats to global development. Unfortunately, the global system continues to, witness wars all over the place. In a book written in 1942 by Quincy Wright, titled a study of war. Quincy Wright tried to interrogate an issue. He says that mankind had become sophisticated. Mankind had, done a whole lot of things that had not been done up to that time. And that he was expecting that by the time he was writing in 1942, remember World War II broke out in 1939, and by 1942 World War II was still raging. He says that he thought that as at that time he was writing, wars would have become anachronistic. That is, mankind will have outlived war, will have become too sophisticated that all the issues that will lead to war will be able to easily resolve them and move on. Unfortunately, since 1942, hundreds and hundreds of wars have been fought around the world. And in contemporary times, many wars are still raging across the world. The most recent is the war, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, which has disrupted global economy. And the result, the aftermath of that invasion, the impact on human development and the global economy, the trends agree with the observations of Thucydides in 410 BC when he wrote the history of the Peloponnesian War. So the conclusion is very clear that wars impact on development negatively. For instance, the IMF World Bank forecast that in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic from 2020 to 2021, the forecast of economic growth for 2022 was somewhere around 4.5%. This thing had to be downgraded to 3.4% on account of, and that was what eventually happened in 2022, on account of the war, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. In 2023, it has further been downgraded to 2.8%, that is this year, and we are expecting even a lower level of economic development in 2024. So wars impact on the global economy and global development negatively. Consequently, there needs to be an organized and effective way to respond to wars, to be able to address growing threats to global development. And that is where the United Nations comes into the picture. The United Nations is a universal, multipurpose international organization established primarily to promote global peace and security. And so the capacity of the United Nations to fulfill this primary objective of its existence is central to the capacity to address, the threats to global development. And with specific reference to this, I would like to emphasize one issue, one gap that the United Nations has had. And that is that the United Nations, even though it has, made contributions over the years in promoting global peace and security, negotiating, mediating in conflicts among international actors and ensuring that peace and stability exist in the global system, it has been deficient in quickly addressing or attending to or responding to threats in several areas of conflicts around the world. And that is where the United Nations will need to brace up. Brace up, one, to be able to quickly respond to, disputes when they do arise, and then fashion out ways to quickly address them. The invasion of Ukraine by Russia is a case in point. People are wondering, where's the United Nations in all of this? It seems that the UN is in somnolence, not capable of responding as robustly as expected to the crisis in that area. To this extent, the UN reforms, which have been proposed for so many years, one of my mentors, Professor Akinjide Oshintokun, was a member of the Committee on UN Reforms. That was as far back as 2003, that's 20 years ago. Yet, those reforms have not seen light of day. So the UN itself, there's a whole lot that the UN itself needs to do in its own structure to be able to contribute to address issues of insecurity across the world, and of course, by extension, issues of global development. So wars are an obstacle to development, and they will need to be reduced to the barest minimum, if not eliminated, for mankind to be able to, witness the level of development that it desires. Second, it's an issue that has been talked about severally, and so I will just mention it tangentially and highlight the key issues and move on to the next, and that is environmental protection. The need to protect the environment and avoid environmental degradation. The link between environment and development is also well established. That is well recognized, and there is consensus among scholars that, sustainable environment enhances general overall development. But we also know that the environment has faced problems over several years. Human activities on planet Earth has led to environmental degradation, and this needs to be addressed. Sometimes, for instance, in Nigeria, northern part of Nigeria, bordering Niger, bordering Chad, we have had the Lake Chad receding. And the violence we have had in Nigeria in the past 2 decades, a whole lot of it has been linked to the drying up of Lake Chad, the stretching southwards of the desert, creating environmental crisis, making herders who will have remained in that axis to tend to their cattle to begin to move southwards, and that has created conflict between them and farmers. And so you see a link between environmental degradation and then violence, and violence again leading to greater poverty, which are all detrimental to development. So measures to tackle the environment are important in our capacity to promote development across the world. You recall that in 2004, the Kenyan academic Wangari Maathai won the Nobel Prize for Peace. And why she was awarded the Nobel Prize was for her contribution to environmental protection. She was involved in mobilizing to plant trees all over Kenya. And that was contributing to enhancing the environment and, by extension, promoting development. That was why she won the Nobel Prize for Peace in 2004. So protecting the environment is crucial to mankind's capacity to address the threats to development in contemporary times. The United Nations has done a whole lot in this regard. In 1992, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development held in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And since then, several other conferences have held, and many of them have actually contributed to environmental protection. It has compelled powerful states to limit, the emission of greenhouse gases, and by extension, promoting and protecting the environment. In 1997, the Kyoto Protocol was adopted, which, extended what was agreed to in Brazil in 1992. And all of those international efforts have, even though we have not reached the level that we want to be, these efforts have contributed tremendously in protecting the environment and reducing climate change across the world. And these are the kind of things that the United Nations will need to focus on more so that the environment can be protected, the development can be sustainable, and of course, by extension, enhance development. A third issue I would like to highlight is that of inequity. There is vast inequity in global development, and the gap will need to be bridged for global development that will be sustainable, to be achieved. In the world today, even though we say, oh, okay, there are threats to development, a major issue is the fact that some have too much, some have too little. And level of poverty has expanded tremendously across the world. Scholars refer to that as maldistribution. That will need to be addressed, for global development. The ones that would carry everybody along, to be achieved. Basically, if these things are not achieved, global security and stability will be negatively impacted. It's acknowledged that poverty and deprivation anywhere is a threat to peace everywhere. And that is imperative, to ensure that we have a global system in which a measure of equity takes place. In 2006, Muhammad Yunus of Bangladesh won the Nobel Prize for Peace for attempting to do, to promote development, among people in Bangladesh, and also to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor by making small loan available to several thousands of people across Bangladesh. By so doing, he was able to raise several thousands from poverty. And it was acknowledged that he was making his own small contribution to development, which was why he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace in that year. These efforts can be carried on the global scale, in which policies are put in place, activities and actions are carried out that ensures that the gaps between the rich and the poor are not too wide, and so that everybody is carried along in global development efforts. Let me just give you a simple example. The entire African continent, all of us, 54 countries in Africa, 1.3 billion people across the 54 countries across Africa. In 2022, our total GNP, everything we did to put together, was about just $2.3 trillion. Meanwhile, one state in the United States, California, population of less than 40 million, maybe 38, 39 million people, had a GNP of $2.6 trillion. What that means is that what one small state in the United States was able to produce, their output, was bigger than what all of us in Africa, were able to manage to achieve. So there is that vast gap between the rich and the poor, and there is a need to address this gap of inequity and maldistribution, as a way of addressing the growing threats to global development. We also have, of course, diseases. We don't have we may not have so much control over some of them. The COVID-19 is the most recent of, such diseases which have disrupted global development. But there's a whole lot of human factor in all of these as well. And what that calls for is caution, care, being sedulous, being cautious about the things we do, so that we do not put in place a process which would create a pandemic and disrupt the global economy. Fortunately, advancement in science and technology helped to shorten the period that the world had to be disrupted on account of the COVID-19. And, the post-COVID-19 period has witnessed a higher level of development than those troubled years of 2020 and 2021. Measures will need to be taken to ensure that some adventure does not create the condition for diseases which will become a pandemic and disrupt the global economy. There is also the factor of cultural barriers to development. That is a factor that is not, given prominence. It is important. There are several countries that have cultural practices which constitute a barrier to development. I will mention just two of these. Consider a country like Afghanistan, where women have been barred from attending school. Women cannot attend school. The government there, the Taliban, they have said, that's against the system they have tried to put in place. Even when they promise that that will not be the case. People are afraid, and we also share the apprehension that if this policy persists in the next 10, 15, 20 years, the country will be far behind others in terms of development. It is established that education, is a major catalyst for development. When people are educated, they are able to contribute meaningfully to, society, the development of society, and when all their efforts are put together, society advances. But when half or more than half of the population cannot access education, that is a recipe for disaster, speaking in terms of development. So there are cultural barriers as one way or the other. Those who, put these barriers will need to be persuaded to see things in the right perspective. so that that obstacle to development can be removed. We also have countries, Nigeria inclusive, where groups of people have cultures that are, that promote, very young people getting married, girl child, instead of girl child education, we hear of girl child marriage. They get married, no skill, give birth to several children, and the consequence, is a society where you have so many people who don't have, contribution to, who can even take care of themselves. How much more, enhance the quality of development for others? And the consequence is backwardness, arrested development in those societies. So this is an issue that possibly the United Nations needs to amplify. That is, how mankind, how humanity can address cultural barriers to development in societies that promote such practices. That will need to be addressed as a way of taking care of the threats to global development in contemporary times. There is also the issue of appropriate policies. When countries address or adopt appropriate policies, it enhances development. When they do the opposite, of course, the impact is clear. We can even use Nigeria as an example to, illustrate this. Just consider the attempt to exchange the Naira exchange program that we just had recently, where people spend huge amount of resources to take their money to the bank and are now spending huge resources to get the same money back from the bank. I mean, several economic data that we have had shows that in the first 2 quarters, the last quarter of 2020 and the first quarter of 2022 and the first quarter of 2023, our economic performance went down tremendously. And one simple, reason that has been provided is this Naira thing. People wanted to go to work, couldn't go to work. People went to the bank and spent hours and hours on end trying to just get their own money put into the bank. We even had one of our sister university, Lagos University, where one assistant bursar there went to the bank. In frustration, he collapsed and died. We say the policy simply led to the death of people needlessly. There are more intricate economic policies that countries have adopted, which have constituted a barrier to development. And in addressing threats to global development, these policies will need to be readdressed. Let me just take another example. Our country has been transferring money to poor people. They say they transfer 5,000 to people. And we have had billions and billions of naira on that project. It is difficult to really see how that has impacted positively on people. And though people are more serious-minded, I've said, will it not have been more sensible to, pool these monies together for, small and medium-scale entrepreneurs to be able to put something together and even create jobs which will employ these people that are giving 5,000 naira. The recent one was $800 million, which the government said it would take to cushion the effect of petroleum subsidy removal. And after the petroleum subsidy is not removed again, they are still taking the money. They say to further enhance the conditional transfer and all that. And these are debts that will be paid over a long time. For instance, $24.7 trillion taken from CBN has been securitized. And they say the money will be paid in 40 years, which means us, our children, and probably our children's children will pay. So appropriate policies, adopting appropriate policies is a crucial issue in our capacity to address the growing threats to global development. There are lots and lots and lots of other issues that need to be addressed, but these are key issues that others can be subsumed under in our efforts and attempts to try to promote global development. One final thing I want to talk about is pragmatism. The global system, the United Nations, countries of the world will need to be pragmatic. Analysis of economic philosophies, economic programs shows that capitalism has its merits. Socialism has its merits, depending on the context. And so a country fixated on just one of these isms, without being pragmatic to adjust when the need arises, will not do well. I say this because even the United States, that is the bastion of capitalism, in the wake of the 2008 global economic crisis, they went a bit socialist, make monies available to companies, you know, were able to rescue several enterprises. In 2015, I was in Detroit, Michigan, at the headquarters of General Motors, and I spoke with some of the directors, and they were telling me, go and help me thank your brother. My brother was Obama in that context. Go and help us thank your brother. He was the one that saved us from this thing. That the Republicans were saying they should leave us. No, nobody should be too big to fail. Raise the question. When there was the global economic crisis, before in 1928, 1929, how was it addressed? And the answer was that government pumped money to rescue those industries. And he said, well, I will learn from history. We will adjust, modify, but we'll also go that route. It worked then, it will also work now. And it did work. And so America was not fixated on capitalism. And so, no, those are socialists. America adjusted, and that saved them and saved the global economy. Countries too will need to do that. Adjust. What the lessons of history teach is that a combination of the isms, an adjustment of the isms according to changing circumstances is the best way to ensure economic development and development generally. So to conclude, we say that, well, all of us, the United Nations needs to reform itself and do a lot more. All of us need to come together. There is need for, multilateralism to continue to be strengthened. There is need to promote inclusive growth. There is need to focus on commitment to the common good. There is need for coordinated efforts to be able to address all of these problems we face. We are hoping and confident that with the energy that young people are displaying and with greater recognition of the need for the human society to work together to address the problems they face, we will be able to continue to first advocate, and then those with capacity to implement policy will need to recognize all of this and ensure that these define the way they focus on their efforts to promote global development. So for inclusive growth to be achieved, the world will need to work together. The idea is that there are many problems that the world faces that cannot be achieved through singular efforts. And that is the imperative for multilateralism. Take, for instance, environmental degradation. The environment, when it is polluted, it does not limit itself to the space of a country. It spreads to several countries. When the river source is polluted, it sometimes stretches to several countries, just like we have Egypt, that axis, Ethiopia. You see the Nile flowing through several countries, the River Niger through a couple of countries as well. So multilateral cooperation should continue to be promoted, and mankind needs to come together closely to address the challenges we face. It is true that countries will try to address issues, first of all, from the point of view of national interest. But beyond national interest, there is also the need for, multilateralism to be able to tackle the problems that face mankind. Mankind needs to recognize that poverty and deprivation anywhere in the world is a threat to peace everywhere. And these issues have been well documented, in academic research by scholars, Joan Galtung, Edo Dazar. And so mankind needs to continue to recognize all of this, work together, so that when we meet again next year, we will say, hopefully, that the global threats to global development are being addressed and positive results are being achieved. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Let's clap for him again as he takes his seat. Yeah, as he was speaking, there are some key factors I noted. That is the gap in the UN, the deficiency in responding to threats and all that, environmental protection, inequality, we taking pragmatic steps, and all inclusiveness so that we can develop and address some of these issues, coordinated efforts by all of us. These are quite solid points and solid pointers that can also lead us as we go for our debate in our various committees and sessions. Thank you once again, Prof, for these pointers in your addresses. All right, delegates, the floor is open for motions to open the speakers list. Motion to open the speakers list. So delegates who would want to move a motion to open the speakers list, please let me see your placards. Cyprus.
Thank you, President of the General Assembly, Your Excellencies. Cyprus rises to move a motion for the General Speakers list to be opened for each speaker's 60 seconds and general speaking time for 45 minutes.
All right, very much. Thank you very much, Cyprus. No, relax. He only said 60 seconds for individual delegates, 45 minutes for the general speakers list. You can also move your own motion to, as it were, quash his own, or yes. I mean, you also have that power. Yeah, don't take him on. All right, thank you very much. Are there seconders to this very motion? Seconders. Japan.
The delegation of Japan seconds the motion made by the delegation of Cyprus.
Thank you very much, Japan. Are there objections to this very motion, what you refer to as counter motions? Yes, raise the placards in such a way I can see your country. All right, Japan.
The delegate of Japan counters the motion raised by the delegate of Cyprus. The delegate of Japan supports the motion of 1 minute speaking.
Is how interesting. On one breath, Japan is supporting Cyprus. On another breath, Japan is also against Cyprus. That's interesting anyway. China.
The delegate of China rises to move a counter motion, proposing a 60-second individual speaking time and a 900-second or 15-minute general speaking time.
All right. 60 seconds individual time, 15 minutes general speaking time. Seconders to China's motion. Rwanda.
Thank you, President of the General Assembly. The delegates of Rwanda second the motion as raised by the delegation of China that the speaking time for individual speaker be 60 seconds and the general time as stated by the delegation.
Thank you very much. Seeing that the House is divided, UK, on what point do you rise?
All protocols duly observed. The delegate of United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland has noted some observations on the standpoint of personal privilege. So I would like the delegate in this house to...
UK, you are out of order. Can you have
the delegate
your seat?
of the delegate
you are out of
of
order, please. Have your seat. Info. Seeing that the House is divided, we'll move on to vote. So delegates who are for the motion that Cyprus raised, that we have individual time speaking of 60 seconds and 45 minutes general time. Please, let me see your placards. Those for the motion. Those for the motion. Those against the motion. Delegates that are against the motion. Overwhelmingly, the motion fails. Delegates for the motion that China raised, that we have 60 seconds individual time, 15 minutes general time. Let me see your placards. Those against the motion. Okay, so this motion passes. That means the speakers list is open for the next 15 minutes with individual speakers time of 60 seconds. Delegates who would want to be part of the speakers list indicates by their placards. UK, you are recognized. Cyprus, you are recognized. Please, Ukraine, you are recognized. Rwanda, you are recognized. Japan, you are recognized. Croatia, you are recognized. China and Zambia, you are recognized. Any other country? All right. Seeing none, UK, you have the floor for the next 60 seconds.
Thank you, Diaz. Delegate of UK would like to apologize for the mistake. The delegate of UK
Delegate of
actually...
UK, please, you can have the podium here for your speakers list, please. All right.
All protocols duly observed. The delegate of UK actually raised placard to be called on point of personal privilege, not to be added to the speaker's list. Thank you.
All right, have a seat. So the chair deems that as his own point as part of the speakers list, so that is well noted. Delegates who would want to raise on personal privilege knows how we do it. You should, go by the rules of procedure and you'll be well recognized. Thank you very much. The next on the list is Cyprus.
Thank you, President of the General Assembly, Your Excellencies. The Republic of Cyprus is very happy to be back to the United Nations General Assembly again this 2023. The topic, addressing growing threats to global development, is very apt. It is very important to the Republic of Cyprus because Article 1 of the Charter of the United Nations that actually bettered the establishment of the UN in 1945 states clearly that after the Second World War, that the UN is established, and one of the most important reasons is to ensure peaceful coexistence amongst member
Cyprus,
states.
thank you very much. Your time is over.
Thank you.
Next on the list is Ukraine. To be honest with you, 60 seconds is not 60 minutes. Don't get it wrong. 60 seconds is not 60 minutes. And 60 seconds is very short, if you care to know. So immediately you start speaking, the clock starts ticking. All right. So Ukraine, you also have 60 seconds.
Thank you very much, President of the General Assembly. The delegate of Ukraine is very happy for this opportunity. The world has always gone through threats at one time or the other. These threats include, in the 21st century, the knowing effects of climate change, gender inequality, war and conflict, poverty and illiteracy. Ukraine has gone through several of these and is presently going through wars. Ukraine presently has gone through bouts of evacuation of our most vulnerable citizens. The rights of our citizens have been violated. And then Ukraine used to be a massive producer of wheat, but then bombs thrown into the space and then air spaces have constantly diminished this production. The delegation of Ukraine is elated that the needs very close to her heart are a subject of discussion, and she looks forward to other nations peacefully helping to dissolve the threats as they come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm fully aware we are much into this and we want to clap, but let's really refrain from that, except by my own discretion, I would want the House to clap. Thank you very much. Ukraine, yes, you went ahead to deliver your message within a minute. Next is Rwanda. Rwanda, you have the floor now. Japan, get ready.
Thank you very much, the Dias. I really appreciate this. Thank you very much for everyone who has allowed us to be here today. It's a great pleasure to be here during this new era of this great assembly. It is this pleasure that has maintained the harmony among these nations. And the delegation of Rwanda will speak optimistically on reducing the inequality and realizing inclusive and sustainable growth in the world today. Around the world, I must address these issues, that in the world, current issues like growth is at a very slow rate and investment is too subdued to increase the medium incomes. And so the 2030 sustainable developmental growth cannot be achieved, as nations that are even in this General Assembly today are sources of predicaments that we face in the world today. And I would not want to mention some of these nations, but thank you very much as we go to our various committee and deliberates.
Thank you very much, Rwanda. Next on the list is Japan. The floor is also open for other motions. Yes, point of personal privileges I would wish will be put into writing, except on the basis that I'm not well heard by any of the delegates. If not, point of motions will be in writing. So, delegate of UK, yes, be accordingly advised on point of personal privilege. Aside that, the floor is open for motions. Thank you very much. Japan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, President of the General Assembly. The delegation of Japan clearly recognizes the importance of the topic addressing the global threats to global development, which of course can also be seen as a way to fulfilling the SDGs, which are the Sustainable Development Goals set up around in 2015. And now Japan has also made various efforts, especially in reducing our greenhouse emissions in concerns to climate change, so as to also aid in these processes and also in the Paris Agreement too. And secondly, Japan believes that we can actually achieve these various objectives, also solve these global threats to global development through cooperation between every single member state. Because if we are all in cooperation, there's nothing we cannot do as a global country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Japan, you have 15 seconds left. To whom do you yield your time to?
Currently, I yield my time to you, the President.
Thank you very much for yielding it back to me. Croatia, you have the floor now.
Your Excellencies, the Diaz, delegation of the delegation of Croatia has seen that the topic of this United Nations addressing growing threats to global development is in our favor because Croatia has been seeing a lot of environmental pollution due to mining in the production of oil, natural gases, and bauxite, and so Croatia demands multilateral cooperation from different countries in order to stop or help this environmental pollution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Croatia, you have 20 seconds left. To whom do you yield your time to?
I yield this to you, sir, President.
Thank you very much. Is that Russia? All right. On what point do you rise, Russia? Can we get the mic to him?
Thank you, Chair. The delegate of Russia rises on a point of motion to the Chair to suspend the speakers list and to suspend the plenary session to a later date of Thursday at the closing plenary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rwanda, on what point do you rise?
Thank you, President of the Dias. The delegation of Rwanda rises on the point of to raise a counter motion on what the motion that has been raised by the delegation of Russia, seeing that this nation, this particular nation, are part of the reasons why we are in this present situation
Rwanda,
that we find ourselves.
Rwanda, you are out of order. We are yet to even establish whether what he said is even a motion or not. So I thought you were raising on another point.
All right,
so,
thank you, President.
Thank you very much. UK, on what point do you rise?
Thank you, Dias. All protocols duly observed. The delegate of United Kingdom would like to tell the House to open the rules of procedure and to check point 1. That's point of personal privilege. The delegate of UK will just read some parts of the instruction. So there is a part that emphasizes on switching off air conditioning. Now, the delegate of UK has the floor, please. Now, the delegate of UK has made some observations towards the beginning of this plenary. UK observed that the fans and AC were off until the leaders of the House came in. The delegate of UK means this House is for the delegates and for the leaders, not just for the leaders. Any explanation? The delegate of UK has the floor, please. Speaking from a standpoint of personal privilege, the delegate of UK is not used to hot temperature, unlike countries like Ghana, countries like Nigeria, countries like South Sudan, countries like India. As at present, the delegate of UK can confirm that the temperature at UK is 13 degrees centigrade, unlike the temperature here, which is about 31 degrees centigrade. This is the first plenary session, and the delegate of UK will not entertain this kind of attitude from the House. The delegate of UK will prefer to attend this meeting virtually if this is going to continue.
Thank you very much. Delegate of UK.
The delegate of UK has one more observation. Delegate of UK has observed that the dayers alone were served water when they just came in. This house belongs to the delegate of UK. Reiterates, this house belongs to the delegates and the leaders. So why should the leaders be served water and a fellow delegate who is also a delegate of the United Kingdom does not have water? Are the leaders trying to say we came from a place of drought?
All right, UK.
So the delegate of UK would like to suggest that the leaders apologize for giving a first impression of the delegate of UK has the floor. Delegate of UK would like to suggest that the leaders apologize for giving the first impression of selfishness and non-consideration of the delegates in this house. Thank you.
Thank you very much. UK, like I earlier on ruled, you put everything you said in writing to the office of the President of General Assembly before it will be considered. Thank you very much. Like I said, except on the issue of audibility. If not, all what you said, fine, we've heard, but it should be in writing before that one can be considered. Thank you very much. Now, with the motion of Russia, I would want to take Cyprus. On what point do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the delegate of Cyprus rises to move a motion that, seeing that the 15 minutes so allocated, though few minutes are still remaining, but there have been points in order to distract that process, which is the General Speaker's list. Therefore, the delegate of Cyprus moves a motion that the General Speaker's list be suspended so that this
motion. So Russia's motion was to suspend the speaker's list and also adjourn this very sitting until the Thursday, Thursday closing plenary. All right, so that is Russia's motion. Any seconders? I take that as seconder. Then I'm taking seconders, please. Seconders, Japan.
The delegation of Japan seconds the motion proposed by Russia to suspend the General Assembly or adjourn the meeting till Thursday.
Thank you very much. Objection, Cyprus.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished excellencies. Mr. President, the Republic of Cyprus has sent its delegation. And Cyprus has flown hours to come into Nigeria, to the General Assembly, to deliberate on issues affecting our country and other member states. Therefore, we move that, looking at the fact that there are still few minutes remaining, that postponing this or suspending the General Speaker's list till the day or time proposed by our distinguished colleague delegate is not the best for Cyprus and other member states. Therefore, let the discussion continue until the time elapses to give opportunity to other member states to speak for their country on this very important topic. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cyprus. Seeing that the House is divided, before we do any voting, I would want seconders for Cyprus motion. Panama.
Thank you, President of General Assembly. So the delegates of Panama would like to second the motion of Cyprus. Many other countries have flown here to address this topic, so it will not be fair on us to go back without having this done.
Thank you very much, Panama. All right, so seeing that the House is divided, we'll put these motions to vote. Delegates who are for the motion that there should be a suspension of the speakers list and onwards adjournment of the General Assembly to Thursday, indicate by your placards delegates for this very motion. The motion that was raised by Russia. Delegates, please. Those for the motion that was raised by Russia to suspend delegates list and also adjourn General Assembly to Thursday, please indicate by your placards and raise it well. We are taking counting here so that we will not. Let me talk. Delegates that are against the motion of adjournment and suspension of speakers list. Okay, that motion fails. Delegates for the motion moved by Cyprus to continue with the General Assembly and other deliberation on this very topic. Let me see you indicate by a placard. Delegates that are against the motion. Delegates against the motion that will continue with this very session. Indicate by a placard. One, two, three, four, five, six. Let me call for abstention. Abstentions, delegates that are not voting on this very matter, indicate by a placard. All right, so by majority, the motion moved by Cyprus passes. That will mean that we still have China and Zambia on the speakers list. So we'll call on China to have the floor for 60 seconds.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished delegates. We are well versed with the topic before us today, addressing growing threats to global development in this world we live in. Exponential growth has gone on for 2 centuries or more. However, it has slowed down in recent times, partially due to the coronavirus. However, one underrated reason, as given by our keynote speaker today, is the environmental situation in the world. We can only develop where the world is habitable for us to live in. And this calls for us to make environmentally sustainable actions or decisions and be like China, who has made, what's the word I would use now? Made decisions towards renewable energy. For example, the BYD, which is the leading producer of electric cars for sustainability in the world. The nation of China calls for other nations to follow the steps taken by China.
Thank you very much, China. All right, the floor is open for motions. Zimbabwe, or is it Zambia? Okay, motions. Rwanda. Please, can someone get a microphone for Rwanda? Thank you very much. That's it. It's there.
That the speaker list be suspended till the closing plenary to give opportunity to other nations of the world to hear their opinion, as there are pressing matters that need to be discussed at the committee session. Thank you.
Okay. Cyprus, on what point do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. Cyprus seconds the motion.
All right, even before I called for secondaries, that's fine. Thank you very much. Any objection to the motion? Objection to the motion raised by Rwanda. Any objection? Objection. All right. I'm glad UK didn't object to this, because we can save him with his water after this. No, that is not an objection anyway, because the motion has already passed. And I'm only saying that I'm glad you didn't object, because we will be saving you your water very soon. All right, so delegates, the motion has passed. That means that we are bringing the General Assembly to a closure. But before we do that, I would have to give some few remarks, announcement to follow. Then we would have some photo shoots, yes, group photos with our guests and individual committees. Then we'll zoom into committee sessions even before there's lunch break as well. My closing remarks is simple. Myself as the President of General Assembly, I traveled all the way from Ghana to be here, and I see it as a great honor to be here. First of all, much thanks to all persons that encourage and advise that I should chair this August session of Ruimun. But my coming is actually not because I love to come here or I love to come to Nigeria, that is why I'm here. But it is because I feel and I know very well that the youth of Africa as it stands now, myself inclusive, we have the opportunity to ourselves now. Trust you me. If we don't define the kind of Africa that we want, we can never see the kind of Africa that we ever envisage, even into death. As it stands now, generations that are leading us are almost fading off. We are taking the seat as it stands now. Very soon, we'll be seeing most of you in the helms of affairs, not only in the UN, but also in Nigeria. Some of you can become Nigerian president. Some of you can run for senator race, governorship race. But ask yourself this question. When you get to that point, what are you going to do different from what you are seeing now to develop the kind of Nigeria that you are all envisaging and looking out for? That is one thing I want us to look at now. It is about we shifting our mindset just to conform to certain things that we really want it to happen in our society. We can be the change. We are actually the change agents. Once we're able to define the kind of Africa that we want by our own character and by our mindset, we're able to see that kind of Africa. Trust me, once we leave here, Nigeria, to other countries, what happens is that we are actually going to contribute to the development of that country, leaving our own Nigeria back. Whether you like it or yes, Nigeria is your home of birth, Africa is your home of your birth. You can naturalize, but at the end of the day, you would forever be recognized as a Nigeria. So develop that Nigeria for yourself, be the change agent, and you will never regret you did so. Thank you very much to the organizers and everybody that invited me here. I'm much grateful to our Vice Chancellor and all professors, to whom this very small boy is seated as the President of General Assembly, and they are seated rightly and listening to me. I'm most grateful. On this note, without anything and much ado, the General Assembly closes. So we'll sit quietly and receive announcements. Then the order for our photo shoot and all that will continue.
This sends the order of the photo shoot. Check.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. President of the General Assembly, for the smooth General Assembly. Mr. Vice Chancellor, Mr. Deputy Vice Chancellor in absentia, members of the Redeemers University community, once again, we thank you for giving us another opportunity to hold this wonderful conference in the Redeemers University once again. And we look forward to more sessions of Ruimun Conference in Redeemers University. So without further ado, I would like to move into the photo session proper. And first of all, delegates are advised, and committee officials to advise to hold their placard for the photo session. So this will be the order. Executive Director, sir. Executive Director. Okay. So the photo session would happen outside, and would call, delegates are advised to be seated while we call you based on the order of photograph. And this will be the order. Principal officers with deans, HODs, and officials. The President of the General Assembly, Vice President of the General Assembly, Secretary General, with the principal officers. So the principal officers first, with deans, HODs, and officials. Then our keynote address speaker would also join the first photo session. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir.